it's not clear from the beginning that folks are implicitly making these compromises when they choose HTTP. But after living with them for a while, I'm sure what I'm saying right now sounds awfully familiar to a bunch of people out there. Yeah, I'm Lee Harding, and thanks for having me on, Rick. And I'm the founder of Proxylity, which is a weird little company here in Portland that does serverless UDP. So it's kind of an esoteric concept, but something I hope becomes more mainstream over time.
Yeah, explain UDP.
So UDP is a user datagram protocol, and it's an alternative. It's one of the core protocols behind the internet as we know it. Like there are two IP protocols that are kind of the main ones that make things work as far as applications go, and they use UDP and TCP. So the transmission control protocol or the user datagram protocol. And I'm really focused on the user datagram protocol at the time being. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. What inspired you to work on this problem? Was it a personal pain point, something you saw in the industry?
This is an industry thing. It's something I've seen basically everywhere I've worked since, 2000. Even saw it before that when I was working at Autodesk. The fundamental problem is like the web is huge and successful and awesome, and the tooling around it is also great. So if someone wants to go build a new web API right now, it's easy to do. There's very little risk in doing it, very little investment required, free hosting, serverless, etc. But when teams step outside that HTTP realm, which doesn't fit a lot of applications, but they choose it anyway because it's there. And when they step outside, things start to get ugly. And they're faced with building a lot of workarounds for why that protocol doesn't fit so well. Or they're building custom infrastructure, undifferentiated custom infrastructure that's repeated all over the world. And I just have run into that, over and over again, the last two companies for sure, and before that even. And in the name of developer productivity and developer experience, just quality of life, I want to build that same kind of tooling around these packet-based protocols, UDP and others, so that the developers can enjoy the same productivity and low risk innovation. That's really what it comes down to.
If it's easy, and if it's not, I can totally chop this. But can you just, would it be possible for you to kind of play out a scenario where this technology would come in to play for somebody?
Absolutely. So one of the key places where this comes up and provides a lot of pain, and also what Proxylity is doing in value, is around IoT. So especially long distance, remote, unreliable connections, battery powered devices, that kind of IoT, which can be fleets, sensor networks, drones, all those things, robotics. How the communication happens is actually starting to be important. This is even important in some AI-based things, but let's just take like a little sensor network. We want to deploy 10,000 seismographs around the world and listen for seismographic information, vibrations of the earth, right? How do we do that, right? Are they going to be battery powered? What are the powered requirements? How is the communication going to work? If we choose a TCP-based stack, a REST-based, HTTP stack, the ease of tooling, right, which is super easy to do, we can do that and we can have it up working. But we have some issues that come up, right? TCP is request response. So that little sensor out there in the field has to open up a wireless connection of some kind, send a transmission, wait for a response, send another transmission, wait for a response, and it ends up burning a lot of battery time to do that, right? It's just a fundamental way that TCP works, so REST works underneath the covers. That can be eliminated with using UDP, because it's really just a send only scenario. The device can wake up and in 100 milliseconds or less, send that packet of information and go back to sleep and extend the battery life by 10 times. It's that kind of optimization where it's not clear from the beginning that folks are implicitly making these compromises when they choose HTTP. But after living with them for a while, I'm sure what I'm saying right now sounds awfully familiar to a bunch of people out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's super helpful in helping me get my head around it. As we were talking about before we started recording, I was like, I've had the site open in a tab and I've been trying to get my head around it. And this is really, really helpful. Shifting gears just a little bit, because the one of the most compelling things about what you're pursuing is just kind of the enormity of the potential applications of what you're describing, for people who might be thinking about pursuing a problem or who may have just stepped into kind of the technology startup world to solve a problem. Do you have any particular piece of advice you would give to them based on what inspired you to take on this thing?
That's a question I actually think about a bit because I see so much of that advice out in public, right? And I really don't have direct advice for everybody because people do things for a lot of different reasons, found companies for a lot of different reasons, and do them in different ways. For me personally, like what drives me and keeps me going when things get ugly is just that mission to create real value, do something that improves things for everybody, not just for developers, but also the companies they work for and the people who are using the solutions they provide, right? It's just fundamentally better. So looking for something that really hasn't been solved and trying to improve it. That's what keeps me going because there are some rough times out there, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
But for people in general, I mean, I guess the only advice I have is find that for themselves, right? Is find that thing that's going to keep you going when it does get hard, because it will, right?
Love it. As a person who is going through the hard stuff, is there either as, the work you're trying to do or as being a human trying to do this work, is there kind of a touchstone or resource you find yourself coming back to time and time again that supports you? I'm just looking for these kind of poignant resources that people might not be aware of that could be beneficial to them.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, for me, there are a couple of things. Is staying connected, right? So I try to follow like what's being talked about and what people are doing and why they're doing them. I used to do this thing where I read all the source code, coming out of the GitHub feed, Firehose, just to kind of get a sense of what kind of problems people were working on and what's keeping them going and excited and what kind of problems they're running into along the way. But from like a fundamental, it makes it work for me. It's a little bit different now than it was maybe a while ago, but I could not do what I'm doing now without AWS and their core services that they provide. And more specifically around this concept of serverless that really fundamentally just removes the risk from trying new stuff. And that's what's so powerful about it to me. And that's what I really, like to make possible with Proxylity. But that fundamental ability to just go out and try new things, be silly. Like you may have seen, I wrote about building a little hackaday display, IoT display that just shows the comments scrolling in basically real time. That kind of ability to just experiment, try new things is so powerful. It's what's driving this technology forward, driving all the value that we realize from software forward at the end of the day is removing that risk.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And particularly from a Portland perspective, I think one of the things I've always appreciated the most about working in technology around here is we tend to lead with curiosity and creativity ahead of like potential business applications. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. I want to muck around with that and figure out what to do. So I love that. I love that perspective.
Yeah. A caution about disconnecting that from business results, though, because the reality is business results in general, the really big ones come from unexpected places, right? That experimentation is where they come from.
Yep, totally agree. How can we who are listening be most helpful to you and what you're working on right now?
Well, I'm still pretty early at this. I've been at it for just over a year now, and I think the thing that I enjoy and benefit from the most right now is connecting with potential design partners, right? Folks who are willing to take a real critical eye at what I'm doing, see if it fits what they're doing, and help kind of define what the future holds for UDP Gateway. It's like, how do we build this out to make it better and more valuable across a bunch of different markets? As you said, like this is broadly applicable. I got to focus on one thing at a time because, it's a small company still. But I'd love to meet those people, have those conversations, and try to figure out how to make things better for them. That's at the end of the day.
Do you have a startup story to tell? I would love to hear from you.